Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
I'm excited to welcome Georgiana Laudi, a strategic advisor, mentor, speaker, and passionate advocate for turning customer value into revenue-generating outcomes. With over 2 decades of launching and scaling both B2B and B2C brands online, she's earned her reputation as a powerhouse in the product growth strategy. Gia is the co-founder, and CEO of Forget the Funnel, where she helps founders and executives frustrated by stalled growth transform customer insights into repeatable success. She's also the host of Forget the Funnel podcast and the best-selling author of Forget the Funnel, a customer-led approach for driving predictable, recurring revenue. Gia is here to share her expertise on aligning customer needs with business growth to build scalable growth strategies that work. Gia, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks so much for having me, Lisa.
Absolutely my pleasure. And as we were talking before we even started the recording, what you do is one of my most favorite things in the world. The idea of the intersection of where when we understand and know what our customers want and need and don't make assumptions about that, we actually can do really brilliant things. So Gia, tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and why it's important today.
I think it's always been important. Lately, in the last, I'll say decade, today, as in today, particularly for technology companies, where there is a tendency to create a bigger distance. Honestly, a lot of companies are creating a bigger distance between themselves and customers, particularly with technology companies, which are the ones that, we focus on, software companies. Many of them are quote unquote, like product led and don't offer, a high touch service. And that adds a level of distance between the team and customers. So it's particularly advantageous and important now to get close to customers, have those opportunities to get closer to customers, be able to leverage, our deep understanding of customers to create better experiences for them, even at scale. I think it's, obviously it's always been important. I think it's particularly important now.
I like the point about the reality that with technology, we are inherently in automation creating distance from our customers. And that first touch customer service is often automated in some way, shape, or form. More and more of that, hopefully, right, is becoming an AI interaction that can learn and start to provide a higher touch experience than just sort of, an email saying, we're closed, call back during business hours. With that need to close the distance, right? How do you make that connection back to the customer and what they actually need and want from the business?
Yeah, so there's a certain methodology of customer research. It's not going to surprise you. Getting close to customers generally requires talking to them and running customer interviews. And there's a methodology that we use to guide those conversations called the Jobs to Be Done methodology. It's based on the belief and the approach to customers, in that your customers are hiring you to do a job for them. And there's circumstances that occur in their life that lead to them needing a solution like yours. And then there's a journey that they go on through discovery and research, or some sort of introduction to your offering. And then there is a decision making, and there's the pushes and pulls of them making a decision about, using a solution like yours. And there's, the context that they're in, the solution that they're firing in order to hire yours, how they make those decisions, what their deal breakers are, their motivations, their anxieties, all the way through to becoming a sort of lifetime customer of yours. And if you can have those conversations with customers and have them recount that sort of documentary like experience of experiencing the need for a solution like yours, all the way through to shouting your name from the mountaintops, then you as a business and a team are in a much better position to be able to sort of reverse engineer that success for future customers and also for your existing customers. So we use Jobs to be Done to guide our research. And then we developed a process on top of that called customer-led growth, which is about leveraging that documentary-like understanding of your customers, identifying the patterns across a meaningful segment of customers, and then mapping their experience basically from, again, the struggle phase through the evaluation, through the growth phase, identifying what those meaningful sort of leaps of faith are in their relationship with you. Not transactional moments, but moments that the customer experiences value. And then we also talk about how to measure our ability to help customers get and reach those success milestones, and those become our KPIs. And then basically the team's job is to create experiences for customers that roll into helping customers reach one success milestone after the next. So again, it starts with research, which doesn't have to be this big scary thing. And I can talk about research more if you want to go down that path. But then understanding your customers' jobs to be done then puts you in a position to be able to map that end-to-end customer experience and measure it, and then provide that as a tool to your team to then create better experiences and even scalable experiences for your customers.
Absolutely, right. So, what you've described broadly, right, is creating and understanding the complete customer journey and knowing what it is and where those key touch points are, where those moments that matter actually exist. Because I'm going to make a sweeping statement that I am going to make the assumption that your customers, your clients, have a set of assumptions that they believe about their customers. And once you do the research, you prove most of those assumptions wrong.
Often. It happens a lot more than we like to admit. I mean, not us, but when we're working with teams, oftentimes when the founder, the CEO, or the CMO, or the head of product, in our case, because we work with SaaS companies, comes to us, generally there's sort of two camps. There's one camp that shows up that says, we don't know enough about our customers and we need to make better decisions about how to grow. And the other camp says, well, we actually know our customers quite well, but we need better messaging, or we need better positioning, or we need, we need to fix this part of our customer experience that's broken. And what that second camp sometimes doesn't realize is actually what they think they know about customers can actually stray quite wildly from what we end up discovering. In general, what I would say that we find when we're working with teams is that the vast majority of teams are satisfied with way too broad of an understanding of their customers. They think of their customers as this sort of wide breadth of a group of people solving multiple different problems and in multiple different situations. And a lot of teams are okay with that. But when we work with teams, generally what we're doing is identifying the groups of customers that really care about solving the problem. They have an urgent problem. They have a willingness to invest in solving that problem. They're well suited to your solution, and they have a problem that is going to be sustained or likely to be a recurring value sort of situation. We work with B2B SaaS companies. That's a subscription model, recurring revenue model. There's a lot of different types of businesses that are recurring revenue, but obviously in that situation, even if you don't have a recurring revenue business, generally you're looking for high retention, return customers. So if you can you can find that sweet spot in customers who have an urgent problem, genuinely understand the value of the problem that you solve, having willingness to pay, and also have the type of problem and opportunity for you to provide value over the long term, that's a real sweet spot of customers. And with the teams that we're working with, generally we can help narrow the focus on those amazing customers so that, yes, other customers with other, adjacent problems may show up to your front door, but at least you are leaning into that most valuable, ideal customer for your solution. And everything becomes easier once you have that deeper, more narrow sort of view of your customers. Lots you can do after that.
So, Gia, tell me a story about a journey that you've been on with one of your clients where they had that aha moment, right? They thought they knew who their customers were and what they wanted. And, after a little bit of the discovery and understanding the jobs to be done and getting into customer led growth,
Hmm.
their paradigm shifted, right? Their reality was like, oh, and what did
Yeah.
that realization do for their business ultimately?
Yeah. So I have a bunch of stories that I could lean on, but I'll lean on one in particular just because it's so straightforward, and actually the upside was nearly immediate as well. So it's a nice little tight story to tell, even though there's many examples of this, because it does happen like 9 out of 10 times that we're working with a team where we discover, like, so your understanding of customers is this wide, but actually if you zeroed in on this group and did a better job with them, things would be a lot easier. So there was a team that we were working with where they were in the martech space, so they had a social media software, and they were serving small businesses wanting to um, well, this is where it gets a little bit complicated to describe, right? Because ultimately what we learned was a little bit different than where we started. But they were servicing small businesses in the social media space. Let me just say that. Around for a few years, they had been largely grown on the back of really thoughtful content marketing and thought leadership on the part of the founder. They did a really, really great job with their content. Were constantly sort of um, uh, benefiting from the traffic and the attention and the likes and all those great signals that marketing is doing a great job. They were getting all of those signals. Their traffic was nice and high. Their signups were even okay, but revenue growth had been flat for about a year. And no matter what they threw at this thing, more ads, more content, right? They did what they knew. They doubled down on the things that they knew how to do. And eventually, after about a year's time, the leadership team was like, no, something's amiss here, and we can't just keep doing the same thing. And so what we did was we learned from customers, and what we learned was there were two really distinct groups of customers showing up at the front door. There were those that were newer to social media, wanted to grow their business. Sounds like it makes sense, right? They want to grow their business with social media. And this other group of customers was actually trying to automate the process of their social media posting. And what was happening is that this first group of customers who were looking to grow their business, they were very vocal. They were showing up in droves. They were going on and on about how amazing their content was. They loved the customer support team, right? Warning signal right there.
Mm-hmm.
Vocal majority by far. But what we learned when we looked at the data after learning from customers qualitatively, we then looked at quantitatively. And what we learned was it was actually this second group of customers that sort of flew in under the radar. They activated within the product without any support, and they stuck around for longer as well. So they were higher LTV overall, but they were not the vocal majority. So the team had been operating for years under this assumption that the first group was actually their target customer because they were the one that customer support was talking to all the time, and that were, commenting online, and again, the vocal majority. And so this was a really stark contrast between these two groups of customers. And it's not to say that they wanted to stop serving that first group of customers that were looking to grow their audience, but they knew that this second group of customers was not being adequately addressed in their messaging. They could be doing more to help these customers see themselves in their positioning and messaging and in their onboarding process. And so what we did was we updated the messaging on the homepage, product page, and pricing page. And the signups on the website increased 98%. But the really cool part about this story is we only updated 3 pages on their website, but their trial to pay conversion rate also increased 40% because we were doing a better job of addressing the needs of that better, higher, that higher LTV, better fit, better product fit customer. So that's a relatively straightforward, example of this in the real world.
It's a fabulous example because it's also right in those two customer profiles and what they were doing. You had a maturity issue or a maturity opportunity in the businesses themselves, right? So the quiet, profitable, highly profitable customer base was more um, self-serving, right? They were
Yeah.
capable of doing more for themselves, and with little bits of change, more of them makes the business more profitable, but it also lets you really focus in on what nuances, how do we continue to enable them to be so successful on their own, in their own right, as opposed to the time and energy it takes to teach and coach somebody who's learning how to activate their brand and social area.
Hmm.
There's two very different models there, and
Yep. Yeah,
we
absolutely.
that loud vocal majority is really easy. I mean, it's the squeaky wheel syndrome, right? If we really want to
Yeah.
oversimplify it, um,
Yeah, that's right.
that
Yeah.
that distracts from core value.
Yeah, it's it's not that it's impossible to serve both of those customers, but being able to pull them apart, because it does happen a lot, right? Especially with software, right? Sometimes there's a more tech savvy or a less tech savvy type of customer base. It's not always the case. Sometimes we identify the different segments in when we do research based on previous solution that somebody is firing in order to hire yours. Sometimes those lines that we draw between the different groups of customers vary, but it happens quite a bit where these two groups of customers where the team wants to continue serving both of these customer groups. But what allows you to be so much more strategic and so much more effective is if you actually segment them and are
Absolutely.
aware of them, right? And can provide the most appropriate experience, whether it's the previous solution that they're firing, and being aware of that context in your customer's life, and being able to service them either in a high touch or low touch, but
Yep.
just having that information available. Humans tend to be decent at sort of pivoting on the fly. Programmatic communication requires a more thought, right? And so this just puts you in a position to be able to create more scalable types of communications that actually that actually work and are higher converting. So this is very sort of mainstay marketing, but for a product onboarding or customer onboarding experience, obviously it really starts to sing there, because the ROI generally for marketing sits at onboarding.
Right. And for that, for your client, for growth over time, right, it gives them the insight to consider a, do it for yourself model, a done with you model, a we do it for you model, if that's, a path, right? Because three distinct customer segments that the system can support, if, if designed, and, there's the service offering around it, and, there's different ways of leveraging that knowledge to grow if they want to in different directions.
Yeah.
Um, you are also a founder, co-founder, and CEO of Forget the Funnel. So,
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit about your business journey, and where your growth is at, and maybe some of the hurdles that you've overcome for yourself that are learning moments for the audience.
Good question. So Forget the Funnel is a boutique product marketing and growth consultancy. We like to think of ourselves as a liberating force versus an occupying force. So we are not a typical agency that sticks around for long-term retainers. What we like to do is work project-based. And generally what we're doing when we work with companies is we're running through our customer-led growth process. So we start with research, as I mentioned already. We identify the customer jobs to be done. We meet with teams and basically, share the learnings about customers. I should start with we find out about business goals. Business goals are where we start. Then we do research based on those business goals. Then we meet to share with the teams what we've learned about their customers, and we help facilitate basically the prioritization of those customers. Not to say that you would necessarily want to eliminate any, although many of the teams we work with do eliminate some from contention. Some will move forward with one group of customers, and some will move forward with maybe two segments or three segments that they want to continue serving. But generally what we do is we prioritize one, and then with that customer job to be done, with that customer group in mind, we do a sort of heuristic analysis of the customer's experience from beginning to end. And then we do kind of a gap analysis, right, to identify where are the opportunities, where is that customer experience out of alignment with that ideal customer. And then we facilitate a half-day workshop at the end where we go over everything. We share a customer experience map, the KPIs across, those milestones like I described before, and we go over all of the opportunities that we identified. But this is definitely my favorite part of working with teams is when we all sort of sit down in that virtual room and go over all of the opportunities once we've shared those insights, and really have a deep discussion with the major stakeholders on the team. So with us, we work with B2B SaaS companies. So generally the product, the head of product is in the room, the head of marketing is in the room, the head of CS and sales is in the room, the leadership team, generally, founder, CEO, sometimes CTO is in the room. So or a head of growth, depending on the makeup of the team. And so all those, strategic thinkers in the room, percolating and, turning over and looking at all of these customer insights, at that deep intel about customers, then thinking about their sort of end-to-end experience and how the team might be able to, provide value along the way, and then sitting there and ideating on all the ways that they can provide more value to customers. It is a beautiful thing. We get really, really amazing feedback after the workshop. One founder once told me that we did more in a 2.5-hour workshop than his head of product was able to do in 2 years. And there was nobody happier than the head of product about it. So it's a really, really valuable experience. I love it. I am still in all of them because I love this stuff. I can talk about it all day long. But I really love that sort of holistic experience of helping a team get a lot closer to their customers and identifying these sort of growth unlocks that they weren't able to see before. So that's how we work with the companies that we work with, the vast majority, and that's us running through our customer-led growth process. We did write a book about our process as well, which we were intentionally adamant about making very, very short and practical. So it is a very short read. Highly, highly practical. There's a workbook that goes along with it. But if anybody's interested in knowing more about the customer-led growth process itself, we did write a book to go through the end-to-end experience so that you can figure out if it's something that you think might work for your team. So ever since writing the book, before we wrote the book, people were showing up and saying, we need more leads. And now people are showing up and saying, we need to know more about our customers so that we can make better decisions. And I can't think of anything better than that.
It's a great way for somebody to show up looking for help because, because
it's rooted in what actually matters. And if you understand what customers' needs are and you deeply understand what motivates them and their context when they're making a decision about a solution like yours, that makes marketing and lead gen and all of those and acquisition so much easier. That was definitely, a big learning for me early in my career. So it's very gratifying to be able to help teams do that now for sure.
Gia, if you've piqued the curiosity for people in the audience, where do they learn more?
So forgetthefunnel.com, our website, is definitely a great place to start. And then anybody who's interested in, seeing for themselves if they think this is a process that could work for their team, I would, recommend checking out the book, Forget the Funnel, on Amazon. We also have a podcast, as you mentioned, where we talk about these things in more depth. Or of course, if anybody's interested, you could always reach out by email at gia@forgetthefunnel.com.
Fabulous. Key links will be in the show notes. It'll be easy to find. And Gia, today you have given and shared so much with the audience, but starting with the point that it's important to get closer to your customer, especially in this digital technology-driven age, to remove that distance so that going through your process, right, people can understand the jobs to be done and get the research and understand the customer insights so that you can develop and get to the model that gets to customer-led growth and actually driving value and understanding all of that. I love the little phrase, growth unlocks, right? We get so wrapped up in things, we forget that what we're trying to get to is sustainable and repeatable growth for our customers. So audience members, we have had a lot of information shared with us today. Gia, thank you for being here. And audience, you know the rules, don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show.